Fatir means the creator, the originator of creations, the creator of the primeval matter to which more creation is added by God Almighty. Therefore, when we break our fast in Ramzan, we say iftar. Iftar means break. Same way, the word fatir means creator. It means shaper, former as well as splitter. Quran tells the people that don't you see the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and don't you ponder on them? Look at the sun, look at the moon. They are following the laws of nature. They will never change their course. They are all natural. Same way, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is too natural. It's mentioned in the Quran in Surah Ahzab, chapter number 33, verse number 62. It says, Walan tajid, that the nature, Walan tajid li sunnatillah tabdila, that you will never find a change in the nature of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In Surah Ahzab, chapter number 33, verse number 62. A similar message is repeated in the Quran, saying that established the handiwork of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Never will you find a change in the work of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is a standard religion, but most of them will not understand. Mentioned Surah Rum, chapter number 30, verse number 30. Today science tells us, the quantum and the modern science, they tell us that without an observer, you don't have anything. The universe without the observer is useless. The scientists pose the question, who was the first observer? Another attribute of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Ash-Shaheed, the witness. Quran says, Allah was the person who first witnessed. So, God is not supernatural, God is natural. Regarding our second part of the question, that God can do everything. Normally, I pose this question to most of the people who believe in God, just so that they have a better understanding of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I ask them the question that can God create anything and everything? Most of them will say yes. Can God destroy anything and everything? All will say yes. My third question is, can God create a thing which He cannot destroy? And they are trapped. If they say yes, that God can create a thing which He cannot destroy, they are going against the second statement that God can destroy everything. If they say no, God cannot create a thing which He cannot destroy, that means they are going against the first statement that God can create everything. Again, they are not using the logic. They are trapped. Same way, God cannot create a tall, short man. Yes, He can make a tall man short, but no longer he remains tall. He can make a tall man short, no longer remains tall. He can make a short man tall, no longer that man remains short. But you can't have a tall, short man. You can have a medium man who's neither tall, neither short. But God can't make a man who's tall and short at the same time. Similarly, God Almighty, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, cannot make a fat, thin man. There are 1,000 things I can list which God Almighty can't do. God cannot tell a lie. The moment He tells a lie, He ceases to be God. God cannot be unjust. The moment He is unjust, He ceases to be God. God cannot be cruel. God cannot forget. You can list 1,000 things. God Almighty cannot throw me out of His domain. The full world, the full universe belongs to Him. He can kill me. He can obliterate me. He can make me vanish. But He cannot throw me out of His domain. To Him belongs everything. Where will He throw me? He can kill me. He can obliterate me. He can make me vanish. But He can't throw me out of His domain. Nowhere does the Quran say God can do everything. In fact, Quran says, Inna Allaha ala kulli shay'in qadir, that verily Allah has power over all things. Quran does not say God can do everything. Quran says God has power over all things. Several places. Surah Baqarah, chapter number 2, verse number 106. Surah Baqarah, chapter number 2, verse number 108. Surah Al Imran, chapter number 3, verse number 29. In Surah Nahl, chapter number 16, verse number 77. In Surah Fatir, chapter number 35, verse number 1. Several places the Quran says, Inna Allaha ala kulli shay'in qadir. Verily, Allah has power over all things. And there's a world of a difference between Allah can do everything and Allah has power over everything. In fact, Quran says in Surah Buruj, chapter number 85, verse number 15 and 16, it says that Allah is the doer of all He intends. Whatever He intends, He can do. But God only does godly things. He does not do ungodly things. Regarding our main question, why can't God take human form? Posed by a non-Muslim. This philosophy of God taking forms is called as anthropomorphism, that God Almighty takes forms. And they have a beautiful logic. That for God Almighty to say, to know, to instruct the people how it feels when a person is hurt, He had to take a form of a human being to tell to the mankind how it feels when you're hurt, how it feels when you're happy, how it feels when you're sad, to lay down the do's and don'ts for the human being. God Almighty took the form of human being, known as the theory of anthropomorphisms. But if you analyze, this logic does not stand the test. Suppose I'm the inventor of a tape recorder. I create television. I don't have to become a tape recorder to know what is good and bad for the tape recorder. I don't have to become a television to know what is good or bad for the television. I just write a catalog that to play a cassette, insert the cassette, press the button play, the cassette will start playing. Press stop, it will stop. Press fast forward, it will fast forward. I put down a catalog. Same way, God need not become a human being to know what is good or bad for the human being. He chooses a man amongst men to give the instruction, to give the catalog. Which is the catalog? The Quran. The catalog for the human beings, the do's and don'ts, what is good for them, what is bad for them, is the Quran. He does not have to become a human being. Why? You ask me, can't God take human form? Yes, He can take. But the moment He takes the human form, He ceases to be God. Because God is immortal. Human beings are mortal. You can't have an immortal and mortal person at the same time. It's like a tall, short man. Human beings, they have certain qualities. They have wants. For example, they have to eat. They have to eat. Quran says in Surah Anam, chapter number 6, verse number 14, say, will I take for anyone as a protector besides Allah, the creator of the heavens and the earth, who feeds everyone but is not required to be fed? Human beings required to eat. God requires to eat? No. Human beings requires to sleep. It's mentioned in the Quran in chapter number 2, verse number 255 in the Ayatul Kursi. No slumber can seize him, nor sleep. God does not require to sleep. So if you have a man, man requires to sleep, man requires to rest, man requires to eat. How can God come down and be mortal and immortal at the same time? It's illogical. If you say that God takes human forms and has human qualities, you are giving a whip to the atheist to beat you with. The moment you say God is supernatural, God can do everything, you are giving a whip to the atheist to beat you with. God is not supernatural. God cannot do everything. God cannot take human forms. God is natural. God has power over everything. He is the doer of all He intends, and He does not take human forms.
My name is Austin Phillips. I'm a Christian. Now, there are many questions I would like to ask, but I know time will not permit. So,
can we have the most important question put?
Yeah, the most important question now I will ask is what comes to my mind right now is this, that Islam speaks about Jesus Christ. Islam